On this channel, I talk more about wins I'm realizing than losses. And something I want to kind of get more into the habit of is creating content around things I've learned, things, places I've made mistakes, places I have put my foot in my mouth. And today is no different. And so what we're trying to do here every Monday is create these real world mini PDs, right? These are little bits of goodness to hopefully bless you in your week as you're kicking it off every Monday. We're dropping them at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so they are around here on YouTube. And if you want to re-listen and you don't want to use up all your Wi-Fi, you can just listen to them right at on our podcast channel, which is the Teacher Class Off Radio channel on anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. So I want to jump right into this because I want to try and keep these short and sweet, which for that reason, I'm only going to give two things today, but I want to talk about two classroom management errors, mistakes that I made when I started teaching that I have since grown from. And the beauty here is that, look, I think in life, we can look at things as losses or we can look at them as lessons. And so although it hurt, although I have made egregious errors in my teaching career and in my life in general, I'm really trying to look at things as lessons because that's allowing me to learn from them, to grow from them, that it's not just something that happened that destroyed me, but something that I came away with something from. So the first thing I am kind of thinking about is when I think of classroom management, it's really important, I think, to keep in mind what are students' motivation? Because when you think of a classroom management system, so in the beginning, that classroom management system was based around things like fear, not wanting to disappoint the teacher, not wanting to disappoint your parents. And for some students, they could care less. They don't care about my feelings. They don't care that I'm standing in the front and I do this thing, right? I'm sure many of you have tried this. And if you haven't, don't start now. Stand in the front and go, all right, oh, we're talking? That's all right. I'll wait. I'll wait for you to stop talking. And then it's like 10 minutes later, I'm still, does anyone care anymore that I'm still waiting up here? No one cared. Or the few kids that did weren't the kids I was looking at. I was waiting for silence across the classroom. And so what I found is that I had to tap into what students' motivation was. Now, how do you find that out? The only way you find that out is by building relationships with students. So building relationships feels good. It's nice. It makes kids like want to hang out with you and stuff. But, remember, education is only ever about students. So in building relationships, we are trying to connect with students on a level that is it's providing data. It's providing us insight into who kids are and how they work and what their motivation is. So I had a student, my first year of teaching, named Alton. And Alton didn't want to listen if I kept him after class and told him about all the great things I saw in him. I think you're such a great kid. And I really think you can do more than kind of what you're showing us here. Or if it was kicking him out of class, if it was taking him to the principal, if it was bringing in his parents for a conference, if it was talking to him about how disappointed I was in him, none of those worked. Until one day I saw his parents came in for a conference. So it was just mom and there was a little sister. And I saw he changed when his little sister was around. He lit up a little bit. You could see the care in his eyes and in his tone of voice, where he was kind of scrappy with everyone in school. He was very gentle with his sister. And so one day he was failing. It was the third quarter of the year, getting ready to go into the fourth quarter, in danger of failing for the year. And I said, Alton, come here. I need to talk to you, bro. I'm curious. What do you want to do with your life? And he talked a little bit about what he wanted to do after high school. And I said, well, what's the reasoning for that? Why would you want to do that? And so he talked a little bit about his own sort of needs and what he wanted to have happen in life. And I said, what, did you ever think about your sister? And that shifted him, right? Now he's not really sure what I'm going to say. Now he's not sure. I'm getting that look of you might be walking a fine line here, which I knew I was. I said, did you ever think about, it's just you and mom at home, right? And your sister? Yeah. Dad in the game at all? Not really. Okay, so what happens when your sister gets older and mom's still working two jobs to keep the lights on, to keep food on the table? Wouldn't it be cool if you created a space? You had your own apartment, but you had an extra bedroom. So if your sister ever wanted to come over, she could come over and have her own space. She could have a nice bed with cute sheets and the rooms hooked up. What if you had her favorite food at your house? What if she and her friends just needed a safe space to hang? Because you know what happens with kids when they're hanging all by themselves. All madness breaks loose oftentimes. And so you created a safe space. They could come over and like watch movies or chill or whatever. What if when she went to college, you could afford to move her into her dorm room? What happens when she graduates from high school? You can actually give her a good gift. And so the conversation shifted to, this isn't about me. It's not even about you, Alton. It's about your sister. Are you willing to do this for your sister? And that had the biggest shift on his life. And it wasn't necessarily anything I did, right? It was just speaking to what his motivation was. So when we're building these relationships and we're finding out what makes kids tick, where they're coming from, where they're hoping to go, and who they care about and love, it's important to look at what is the motivating factor in their lives, and then using that as leverage to help them succeed, right? They don't know that that's the leverage right now. We're helping them to tap in. And that's also a reminder of when they're struggling in class to say, listen, remember, this is the goal. So even if you don't like Latin, even if you don't like geometry or physics, is physics going to get in the way of your little sister having her own room, having her own space, right? That's what I want you to think about. And then it becomes, oh, heck no, like that's not going to happen. And so that's how we kind of tap into kids' motivation a little bit. The other thing is, when I think about those first years of teaching, especially, or anytime I've had a student that was particularly difficult in a number of ways, right? I need to remember, and the lesson I learned was that those things that I thought were unicorns were not unicorns, that unicorns are actually much rarer. So what do I mean by unicorn? A unicorn is a student with a certain set of behaviors, of abilities, of problems or prizes that they possess, that you're like, oh, I haven't seen this one before. This is something new. And that could be something that's really wonderful or something that is a problem in class, right? So, but what I found was that kids I thought were unicorns, right? You try to do this. I'd see a particular student and they have very particular needs. Maybe those are behavioral needs. Maybe they act out a lot. Maybe they threaten other students. Maybe they're in fights a lot. Maybe they are failing all the time and sleeping all the time, and they have a 2% in your class, which is really difficult to get that low. That is actively failing. You're trying to fail. Maybe it's a student that every single thing you say they got a problem with. Maybe it's also a kid that has unbelievable ability. They are much higher functioning than most of the class, that they read really quickly. They get through all the work fast. They're done in 10 minutes what it's taking everyone else 40 minutes to do. Maybe it's a student that needs all of your attention. They're such high needs for any number of reasons, but they are always asking you questions. They're always coming up and talking to you. They always want all of your attention. This could be a student that is incredibly sad or depressed, a kid that has incredible energy and you are not sure how we are going to get through this day because my man is on 11 and a half right now. And so when we have these students, I used to think that, man, if I could just survive this child, this situation, this period till the end of the year, we can just start over next year. The problem is that kid comes back next year. The other problem is they have a different name and a different face. It's the same kid. It's the same behaviors. It's the same problems. Now, sometimes the good stuff becomes a problem too, because sometimes that kid that learns and does everything in 10 minutes is now becoming bored in your class, and you start beating yourself up because you have a class that is built for the 40-minute kids and not for the 10-minute lesson kids. So the question then becomes, how do we learn to work with, not just deal with, to work with those issues? Because I'm telling you now that whether it is in your friendships, your marriage, your dating relationship, or your classroom, these behaviors, if not taken seriously and addressed, they will continue to come back and back and back. So the question is, what's your hard? You got to choose your hard. We can deal with it now or deal with it forever. So the bad news, right? I'll put it right down there on the front end. The bad news is this stuff's all going to come back again. This student, the kid that you have this year, think you all know when I say who's that one student this year that makes that my hair was brown in the beginning of the year, now I got to use a little color, every couple of weeks because it's changing. I don't want to look like Reynolds. That student is going to come back next year. And maybe next year there's 2 of them. Maybe there's 5 of them. The next year they'll be there also. So these kids that are making you drink a full bottle of wine every night will show up again. Now, the beauty of this, the silver lining is that when learned how to work with them, when you learn how to work with those students and work through problems, right? Then next year they come in and you kind of get this, you watch, you get a little bit, you feel a little pep in your step. You got a little smirk on your face. And it's like, I know exactly who this dude is. And they don't even know what's coming because I already know how to help you succeed. I already know how we're going to get to that. Now, is it a little bit difficult every year? It can be. But the better you get, the more refined, the more optimized you get, the better you're going to get at dealing with students until you see some new teacher that is literally looks like they're melting and they have no idea what to do with that one kid. And you go, listen, let me talk to you about this because I've taught this student 15 times already. So let me break it down for you. But those unicorn students are particularly rare and they have to be handled. I think there's a much different way to kind of work with those students. And maybe that's for another video, not to leave you hanging. But, it's this idea of not just getting through stuff, it's learning through stuff. That's what we want to be doing with these particular students. So, look, that's what I have for you this week, gang. Before you go, I want you to know that tomorrow we are doing a how to get your class back mastermind. It's happening on February 7th. This is in 2023 at 7 p.m. I should say Eastern Standard Time, not Central Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time. And so the signups are going to be in the description box below. You have to sign up for the event, but it's completely free. The resources are free. It's about 30 minutes. In Reynolds time, it's about 45 minutes. So look, if you know someone that's struggling this year that needs help, please consider passing this along to them because we're just trying to help every single person that we can to be the teacher that they are called to be. So with that, gang, I'll see you next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another mini PD. Peace.